Hi guys, it's Victoria and welcome back to FemmeHead. Today we're going to talk about cycle syncing, which is aligning your lifestyle habits to the phase of your menstrual cycle that you're currently in. So to start out, we have 4 phases throughout our cycle. We have our menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase, and luteal phase. Our hormone levels and our physical and mental needs are different in each phase. We are different in each phase of our menstrual cycle. Not only learning about these, but leaning into them and giving your body what it needs in each phase. So the big 3 that come to mind when people often talk about cycle syncing is diet, exercise, and lifestyle, which is kind of like a gray area that encompasses everything else. To start with cycle syncing, you need to know where you are in your cycle. It's also worth noting here 2 things. So as you go and start cycle syncing and you make it through a few cycles, you might notice that what you actually need and want isn't what's recommended for that phase. And so I definitely recommend to lean into your unique cycle and what your body is asking for. And the more you pay attention, the more you'll recognize what you need. The second thing I want to mention about this is if you are on a form of hormonal birth control, this will impact how you experience your menstrual cycle and your different phases. So you might not be able to cycle sync if you are on certain types of hormonal birth control. So as I go through the phases, I will kind of give a quick snapshot of like what's happening in your body with like your hormones and your menstrual cycle. And then I will go into food and like movement recommendations. But everyone's cycle is a different length. Their phases are a different length. So I'm just kind of like basing this off of my experience and like the general understanding of the cycle. So tweak it to your own phases and what you're experiencing with your cycle. So to start, we have our menstrual phase, and this is day 1 of our cycle and day 1 of our period. Even though a cycle is round, we look at the menstrual phase as the start of our cycle with our period. This begins with the first day of bleeding, and premenstrual spotting does not count. And this phase lasts for around 5 days, give or take how long your period is. And this one's pretty easy to figure out, and so this is a good place to start. During this phase, both estrogen and progesterone are pretty low, and that's what can cause some of the PMS symptoms we experience. Since we are losing blood in this phase, we need to focus on iron-rich foods. You can Google up what iron-rich foods are, find ones that fit within your particular diet, but I'm going to just list off a bunch that I've written down. So whole grains, spinach, broccoli, tofu, eggs, red meat, liver, and fish. If you are anemic, which I've been anemic at different points, like especially in pregnancy, you can consider a supplement like Blood Builder by Megafood. That's the one I've taken in the past and really like. The other thing that's going to help is magnesium with cramps and just our overall mood. Magnesium is really good for mood regulation. Once again, a list of things: spinach, avocado, bananas, black beans, dark chocolate, and then particular seeds and nuts. You can actually get into seed cycling, but that's an entirely different video. You can also get something like Calm, which is a drink supplement that is like a magnesium drink supplement, or you can get a magnesium spray to use before bedtime. I don't know about you, but warm things feel good on my period. So hot teas, warm soups, hot baths, heating pads, they all sound so good on our periods. So if you're experiencing discomfort, cramping, surround yourself with warm things. And then other helpful foods are healthy fats, root vegetables, and then water-rich fruits and vegetables. Because we're losing fluids, we need to replenish the fluids in our body. When it comes to exercise and moving our body, less is more in this phase, and I cannot stress that enough. But if you do feel like you want some movement, and I know exercise can help some people with cramping, you can do low intensity sort of workouts like walks, yoga, stretching. Moving on to the next phase, it is the follicular phase. This is confusing, but technically the follicular phase is like the first half of our cycle from the start of our period to when we ovulate. But for today's purposes, and like usually when I'm thinking about the cycle as 4 phases, I would say for me personally, this is from like cycle day 6 to cycle day 10. After our period ends, estrogen, progesterone, and the follicle stimulating hormones start to increase, get things going in our ovaries, prepping for the next batch of eggs. you'll start to notice more energy, feel more vibrant, and we'll notice your libido starting to kick back up in this phase in preparation for ovulation. Estrogen dominates this phase, and so we want to make sure we're doing what we can to balance it out. So there are things like sprouted and fermented foods, pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi, and then you have things like oats, broccoli, carrots, I'm just gonna read them, artichokes, avocados, lemon and limes, pomegranates, legumes, seeds, nut butters, and I think olives. You want to keep it chill with exercise in this phase, but you can still do things like jogging, hiking, and like low intensity cardio and strength exercises. And you can increase the intensity as you feel your energy building in this phase. Then we move into the ovulatory phase, and ovulation is just like a one-time day-long event. Like when looking at it as a phase of our cycle, I like to look at it as the fertile window. It's the shortest phase. There's a spike in our luteinizing hormone and our follicle stimulating hormone, which triggers ovulation and the release of the egg. That egg then has 24 hours-ish to get fertilized by sperm, or it will die and be reabsorbed into the body or float down into our uterus to come out during our period. So this is when you are the most fertile. You are experiencing that egg white cervical fluid. You're just experiencing a lot of cervical fluid. So I would say this is around like 5 to 6 days. And I would say roughly like cycle day 10 to cycle day 15 or 16. Still a lot of estrogen that we want to keep moving through the body. Bad things happen when estrogen hangs out and builds up in our system. So fresh fruits and veggies, and then fiber-rich foods to keep everything moving. Quinoa, asparagus, bell peppers, Brussels sprouts, spinach, tomatoes, cantaloupe, coconut, raspberries, strawberries, lentils, nuts, and seeds. We are at our most energetic and vibrant during this phase, so you can do all the crazy high intensity fun workouts you want to do. This is also the time to do any like outgoing activities, big interviews, presentations, that sort of stuff. If you can schedule it during this phase, I cannot recommend it enough. And then finally, our luteal phase. And for me, this is my problem phase, but I don't want to label it as that. I don't want to start. This is the last 2 weeks of our menstrual cycle. If there's a fertilized egg, then that process starts, aka pregnancy. Estrogen is still rising, and then the corpus luteum, which is the follicle in the ovary that released the egg for that cycle. That's what it's called. It goes from being called like just a regular follicle. It turns into the corpus luteum, and it starts like emitting progesterone. And the combination of estrogen and progesterone builds the lining of your uterus to make a big comfy bed for that fertilized egg. But if there is no fertilized egg, estrogen and progesterone will plummet and decrease, and the lining will shed, aka the start of our next period and the next cycle. Start to notice some of the PMS symptoms that you get. Some people might get PMDD during this phase. I get PMDD, so this is why I said it's problematic for me, but we're working on it. We want to eat foods rich in B vitamins, calcium, and magnesium to just kind of replenish, help with mood swings and premenstrual symptoms. Greens and grains, brown rice, cabbage, cucumber, garlic, ginger, onion, pumpkin, radish, squash, sweet potatoes, apples, dates, peaches, pears, chickpeas, more nuts and seeds. And then they say less alcohol, less red meat, less dairy, and less sweet and salty foods in this phase, because those can exacerbate any PMS symptoms we experience. The first half of your luteal phase, as far as exercise goes, you're still gonna have pretty good energy, and so you can keep up with more like medium to high intensity workouts. But as we move our way through the phase, we need to take it down a big old notch and go back to the gentle things like yoga, walking, stretching, and just kind of like prepare to hibernate in our next menstrual phase when we get our periods. I really try to keep it concise, I promise, but this is a longer video. If you want to learn more about cycle syncing, I am going to include some further resources. Like, I have 4 books that I'm gonna include, and then I'm also gonna put the FemmeHead YouTube channel and maybe recommend some videos, and then femmehead.com. I have blog posts, lots of different like phase blog posts, cycle syncing, you name it. I think cycle syncing is a high reward thing that we can do, and I think there is nothing but benefits when we tune into our cycles and know what's going on in our body. And so 10 out of 10 recommend cycle syncing. Listen to your body and tune in. I'm gonna shut up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.